Hello, Inspired Discoveries. My name is Estrada Yarsay. I'm a philosophy, law, and ethics major, and this year's my presentation, Are Jurors Fit to Judge? The Systematic Issues of the Jury System. Now, why do we need juries? We all heard the amendment that the accused shall enjoy their right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury. But what is an impartial jury? Impartial means fair or just, that we're unprejudiced. That the jury should look at just the facts and the context around the situation and make their judgment based off of that. Their own personal biases, outside influence, and the other third-party factors shouldn't come into their judgments. And a jury of your peers. That does not mean people of a similar background to you, as many might believe. It just means anyone from your state that is a legal adult. I know oftentimes we will see young men of a minority being judged, and their jury will consist of older white females, and people might be confused and say, oh, how is that a jury of your peers? No one on there is even similar to you. Well, legally speaking, they are in fact your peers. But can a jury built this way really be less biased, be a better audience, and be able to apply the law better than the judge? Well, there are many problems with jury selection. First, through the process of voir dire, judges and lawyers interview potential jurors and pick out those who they find suitable. Now, in this way, the jurors are actually supposed to be very, very biased. Your defense wants to find jurors that will be sympathetic to defendants and will vote in their favor. Meanwhile, the prosecutors want to find someone that will be very, very unsympathetic to the defendants and find someone who will choose to vote guilty. The attorneys are actually looking for the most biased people of that group that are biased in the way that will favor their clients, instead of looking for people who are completely impartial. And impartiality is oftentimes simply does not exist. Everyone has some personal bias within them, for better or for worse, and that will come into play when they're making a decision, and that's what the system relies on from a jury selection viewpoint. And since there's so many problems with jury selection, jury deliberation also has its fair share of issues. First issue is that most jurors don't want to be there. Jurors get paid nearly nothing, oftentimes several times below their minimum wage. Some states they don't get paid $15 for the entire day. In Maryland, the max you can get paid after several days of deliberation is $60 a day for 8 hours of your time, which is not only below minimum wage, it's most likely below the wage of the people who are attending that jury. They are sacrificing their personal time, taking days off of work, and in fact losing money, which makes jury duty sort of a pain to go through that most people don't want to actually pay attention to. And that's what leads into the next factor, that 90% of jurors will make up their minds about how they are going to vote by the conclusion of the opening statements. That means 90% of the entire trial goes in one ear and out the other. They only care about the initial words that are said, and they make their mind up. And once their minds are made up, they rarely ever change. Once they get into the deliberations, the vast majority always wins, or almost always wins. If it's 8 guilty, 4 not guilty, they will almost always simply vote guilty, because peer pressure will force the minority to change their opinion on what's happening. Less than 2% of juries end in a hung trial. So almost always, it's simply the majority rule taking over, and the jurors who already don't want to be there are sort of forced to go whatever the majority says, simply because they don't feel like arguing, they don't want to be there, and they'd rather get this over with as soon as possible. Things like 12 Angry Men nearly never happen, because peer pressure and the pains of being a juror almost always win out. But what can we do to fix this? Well, one, a jury of your peers, admittedly, should not be a jury that is entirely people of your background. If I, for example, were judged by people who are also African-American Catholic males between the age of 18 to 25, not only would it probably be kind of hard to find a jury of those specific qualities on short notice, but also be very, very inherently biased, more so than usual. But then again, the people who are in my jury shouldn't be people who don't even live in the same community that I do. That's why, for true justice, I believe that juries should be made up of people from your community, people who live in the same county or zip code, people who are close to this crime because they live in the community that's been impacted. Jurors should, and race-wise, demographic-wise, should be similar to the community that they represent. If my county is 60% Black, 20% white, and 20%, 15% Hispanic, and 5% Asian, then my jury should make up a similar looking demographic for the purpose of fairness. Second, if a juror doesn't want to be a part of jury duty, let them leave. Just let them leave. They shouldn't have to go through some weird loophole of claiming to be some sort of bias to get kicked off. Simply let them not be a juror. Because a juror who has no interest in being there will not deliberate in a fair or just manner. They will simply go along with whatever the majority says, wanting to leave as soon as possible. And they will just go along with whatever the majority has to say. And finally, pay jurors a fair wage. Now, the initial payment of $5 a day, that originates all the way back 200 years ago when juries were still being put in place, because $5 was a day's labor then. But the minimum wage in Maryland is increasing to $15 an hour. So jurors should be paid $15 an hour since they are working and losing time off their own clock. And this is sort of the way that we can improve the jury system in the future for all those who are impacted. Thank you.